Well, it seems like lately there has just been a lot of illness going around, and it's just that time of year where colds and flus seem to spread easily between people. And as I've been preparing for Bible study this week, I've been thinking about those practices that I do when I am trying to be healthy or when I am sick, those steps that I take. I try when I'm at church, for example, to use hand sanitizer when I can, like after touching doorknobs and sharing the peace before I go up for communion. I always try to use hand sanitizer. We have tissues that we offer when we're feeling sniffly. And when I'm feeling sick, I try to listen to my body and get enough rest, drink a lot of water, and then take my vitamins, go to the doctor when I need those extra medicine. We have practices that we do and rules that are just kind of been a rhythm of our life since we've been kids to know that when we're sick, we have certain things we have to do, especially when you live in a house and you're trying to not get other people sick too. Making sure to stay in your room, for example, and try not to spread illness. And in the Bible, specifically in the book of Leviticus, a book that lays out laws of how to live right with God, how to live right in community, there were specific laws regarding infectious disease, specifically leprosy. And leprosy was a skin disease that was quite infectious and could spread easily through community. So God instructed the Israelites how to live with one another to keep people safe. And if you didn't have the disease, you were considered clean, but you were also considered right with God. And if you had the disease, you were considered unclean, which led to isolation and separation from community. And yet we're going to see this week how Jesus interacts with those with leprosy, those who were considered to be on the margins, those who were not to be associated with. Jesus instead reaches out and is going to break the rules. The book of Leviticus is the third book of the Torah. It is part of the law section, and it's instructions from God to the Israelites how to live in right relationship within community, and how to be right with God. And these laws varied all the way from dietary restrictions to clothing, and it included what to do if you have an infectious disease. And this week, we're going to spend some time in Leviticus 13 and 14 that tell us what this law says specifically regarding the leprosy and how people were to abstain or what to do if you were found to be sick. Now, God ordained that it was the priest that were to be the examiners to determine if somebody was clean or unclean. And they would look at the spots on the body, the rashes, and the illness to determine if this person was unclean. And if you were unclean, there was an expectation of how you were to stay away from other people. You also were expected to wear torn clothes. You also had to cry out into the crowds, "Unclean, unclean," so people knew not to come near you. But what happens is, of course, it's meant to keep people safe, but then it also has this social issue where people were isolated from community. And we were before a time of medicines and antibiotics that could cure these skin illnesses quicker. And so people had to suffer alone and wait long periods of time for this illness to just leave their body. And then the moment that they were considered to be healed, they not only had to go back to the priest, but they also had to do a whole ritual to make themselves clean by offering a sin offering as well. What we see in the Gospels, though, is that we're going to see lepers come to Jesus. And they're going to know about Jesus, which is the amazing thing, that somehow these people on the margins, they have heard about the good news about Jesus who is working these miracles and showing up. And they take a risk to call out to Jesus, asking him to turn to them and to heal them. And we'll look at the story from Luke where Jesus heals the 10 lepers, the story where he heals all 10 of them, and they go off, and as they're walking to the priest, they are healed, but only one returns to give thanks to Jesus, and it is the Samaritan. And so we're going to dive into the different things within that story. And then we'll look at the Gospel of Mark and the interesting statement that the leper says, if you are willing, Jesus, you can make me clean. And in both of these stories, Jesus shows up in their need. He doesn't turn away from them. He shows us a God who does hear the cries of people in their affliction, in their lowest moment, even the people who are considered the outsiders and the people who are not able to be in community. Jesus shows that their voice will not be ignored and that Jesus shows up and heals them. So I hope you will join us this Thursday as we dive into the law of no lepers.